It was just last week when Swalwell, who represents one of the most locked down states in the nation, that's California, blamed Republicans for prolonging the pandemic. Swalwell tweeting, "You should know who has prolonged it. These guys. Republican liars. Your vacation canceled, your kids back to virtual learning, and back to wearing masks. Everywhere. For blame, look no farther than hashtag these guys." Jillian, I hail from the state of Florida. I'm here now. There's a lot of, quote, these guys, Republicans here in the state of Florida. And look, we're happy. We want everyone to come vacation here. But don't criticize, half of our state or arguably more than that before you come.
Was that to me, Kaylee? I'm sorry. I didn't hear you say my name. I apologize.
Yeah, Jillian.
Oh, to me. I would just point out,
yes,
in the interest of just being fair here, we got to point out that Swalwell wasn't actually breaking the letter of any rules in Florida when these photos were taken. He's more violating the spirit of the rules that he's implemented in his own home state. Every time we see this, though, right, we see a politician who has been a fierce advocate of stricter COVID measures then violate those measures. It rankles and it hurts, whether it was Nancy Pelosi getting that haircut, that illegal haircut in San Francisco. She did actually break the rules she had set for her own state in that instance, or whether it was the governor there eating in an indoor restaurant without masks. Part of the problem here, and the reason it hurts so much, is because it's not just about the hypocrisy. It seems to be an admission from these politicians that they don't believe their own rules and regulations work, which begs the question, if you're not going to follow them, and it appears that you're not, why are they good enough for the millions of Americans who then need to live under them? This is the core of the problem here.
That's a great question.
Right. And Emily, to the first point that Jillian made, yeah, he was not breaking the rules because he's in Florida where we don't have draconian mask mandates. So he's enjoying the freedom that we have here in the state of Florida. Yeah, but in California, when you look at this, the top 5 states with residents leaving are run by Democrats. These are states that you know about, Emily, California in particular, New York, New Jersey, Illinois. These states are the top states people are leaving for a reason for freedom-loving states like Texas and Florida.
Yes, and it's like that. It's that spirit. It's the self-righteousness just dripping off of Eric Swalwell. I couldn't even read the tweet. I had to wipe my screen first. He is the worst of the worst because he refuses to acknowledge that common sense, that reasonability, just like AOC did, right? Diverting the call out to say, oh, it's about you guys wanting to date me. He's absolutely diverting it. So after tweets called him out, he literally goes, oh, I was sitting with a Congolese queen, Pulitzer, please. Like, it's always about himself. And if he was sitting with a Congolese queen, I wish he would have shown her a modicum more of respect by not dressing like that while he was meeting her. But yes, everything about him is totally annoying, and this is just another unsurprising example, and he's continuing to cater to his 1.1 million followers on Twitter rather than rolling up his sleeves and addressing the fact that these policies don't work in California and people are fleeing them, and he's availing himself of all that you can enjoy in Florida.
Yeah, and he could have enjoyed the beaches there in California, too. Harris, Governor Ron DeSantis had some words. So let's roll the tape of Governor DeSantis and get your thoughts.
If I had $1 for every lockdown politician who decided to escape to Florida over the last 2 years, I'd be a pretty doggone wealthy man, let me tell you. I mean, Congress people, mayors, governors, I mean, you name it.
Harris.
So, Kaylee, I think the politics of this are really interesting for Eric Swalwell, because what he's doing is he's rubber stamping Governor DeSantis and what he's done there. And he's proving that we're all in this together as he takes his, you can't vaccinate a baby to Florida, right? You can't put a mask on that little one. I think his little one is really young from what I've seen on social media. And you're taking the one that you love and you're sitting there and that baby's not. So clearly you know that the environment that you have taken your child to is safe. And what does that say about Florida? And what does that say about the policies? I go back to what Jillian was just saying. If it's good enough for you to visit, why isn't it good enough for you to live in? Why does your state have to look so different? And look, I know that the population dictates some things, at least that's the argument here in New York, that, you know, it's its population, it's the crush of people, it's so on and so forth. Florida isn't empty. It's a fabulous place to go. I mean, have you been to Disney World? It's not empty when you go there. So, and he's got his baby. I asked the same question Jillian does. If it's good enough for Florida and you want to be there with your baby, why can't you make some of what you have in your home state rock like that? Bring back your economy, so on and so forth.
Exactly. Guy, we have on the show a hypocrisy slow scroll. We've done it a few times. We'll do it again right now. A list of Democrats who actually have violated their own mask mandates or engaged in some form of hypocrisy. Your thoughts, Guy?
Yeah, I think maskless in Miami is the new sleepless in Seattle. I'm a big fan of that, actually. Here's the thing with Swalwell. Number one, as Jillian said, he was not violating the letter of the law in Florida, which is the point. That's 100%. Why he was there. That's why people have gone to Florida, because they want to live normally and not wear masks and enjoy their lives and breathe in that freedom. That's why Florida's population is increasing. That's why Swalwell went there, I would imagine, among other reasons. It's also very rich for him in that tweet to try to blame Republicans for school closures. Really? A bunch of Republicans controlling the teachers' unions that have pushed for those. That's insulting. I don't think anyone really believes that. One other point, Kaylee, we cut it off, but that clip from Governor DeSantis that we played, in that same press conference, he says over the last year and a half, 2 years, he personally knows of 6 governors who preside over states with more restrictions, more lockdowns, some of them been specifically critical of Florida, who have in fact escaped to Florida for various visits or holidays or vacations. I believe the governor of Illinois, that was publicly reported. The governor of Michigan, if I recall correctly, that was publicly reported. He said there are a few others that have not been publicly reported, but he heard about. I would love to know who those people are. I think their constituents would like to know who those people are.
Oh, we would add their names to the hypocrisy slow scroll, and it may take up a whole
exactly. Put them on the screen.
Great point.
I think you need a new maskless in Miami segment, Kaylee. That's what you really need.
That'd be great. Yeah, with that bump out music. Yeah, exactly. Going to Miami.